I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. In this episode of the show,
can't have high expectations for someone else and not actually uphold high expectations for yourself. Don't let those high expectations lead to them just being focused on the end result. Not were you the best, but was that your best?
and you can say, I gave it my all, and I love it. I'm happy with that. All right, guys, we're back again. I'm so excited to be here, and we have Miss Glyn Ann with me again. So I said that, and she gives me the head tilt, like, you say that every time, fool. I know, it's because I just get excited about the podcast. It's so fun to record these things.
It is.
How are you today, Miss Glyn Ann?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Maybe this is the first time someone's listened, so I should introduce you. Glyn Ann is my wife. We're just a couple of weeks now away from being 33 years of marriage, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I mean, she deserves an award. A big award, like a big trophy for that. That's like huge to put up with somebody like me for that long. So good times. Glyn Ann is a 6-degree black belt, multiple time world champion, and our program director in our Team Chip organization. So with all of that said, we're going to talk today a little bit about the topic of setting high expectations in a world of what I particularly and we kind of perceive of low expectations. Yeah. What do you think about that? I mean, expectations. What do you expect? What do you think about that?
So I think there's kind of 4 things that I really want to be sure that we touch on today. And one of them is, high expectations, have them, period. But this is the catch with that. This is the one is you can't have high expectations for someone else and not actually uphold high expectations for yourself, because then your kids see through that big time. So that's number one.
Something I say to people all the time is kids are smart.
They are, absolutely.
Unbelievably sharp, man. And you can't pull the wool over their eyes, right?
Right,
You
absolutely.
can't blow smoke with the kids because they'll see through it. I love that. You can't have high expectations for your child and then be sitting on the couch having a Twinkie and a cigarette, and
Right.
you're telling them you need to be exercise and eat right.
Right.
It's the old, they don't do what you say, they do what you do. I had to think about how to say that right. But, they don't do what you say, they do what you do. Oh, it's good stuff. I like it.
Absolutely. And then number 2 is that you, with your kids particularly, their backstory.
Right.
And you can't let that backstory sway you. And, sometimes they, we've talked about them being smart, and they can manipulate that and, but whatever it is. And then all of a sudden your little heartstrings get pulled and you back off of those expectations because, that's just like the second thing that I do want to be sure that we talk about. So, and then the next thing is comparative justification. So what I mean by that, big words.
I might need to get my thesaurus out to.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
So that means, well, at least I'm not. And it's usually something pretty. It's usually something pretty drastic, pretty significant that they, or even you, because sometimes you can be like, well, they're doing okay. At least they're not, and so that throws a major kink in your having high expectations. And then the last one is you celebrate victories for sure, but don't let those high expectations lead to them just being focused on the end result, and let that end result be all about the high grade, the winning first place, the celebrate. It's great to celebrate victories, absolutely. But you also don't want it to feel like to them that the only way that they love you is if they actually perform, because then that can twist into something really toxic where they're cheating on their tests because they know you expect an A, or they're trying to go a back door to get something accomplished because the only way that you quote love them. So you have to be you have to be intentional about celebrating the right things, celebrating the work, celebrating the things that they did celebrating the journey, not just the end point.
Right.
And so those are the things I want to talk about today.
All right, let's go back to the first one.
Yep.
Number 1, let's talk about it. So they see through you when you have low self expectations, but high expectations for them. And I think it's important that we talk a little bit from the perspective of a martial arts school owner,
Right.
instructor, not just the parents. So to rehash, if you've listened to any of our podcasts, you may have heard me talk about it. I know I talked about it with Shihan Guido from Fresno. We talked about it a while back in his episode, and I've talked about it with some other people. But I think of it like this: when a parent and a child come in and we start teaching the child, we kind of get in, like, it's not to be weird, but like Guido called it a triangle. We always thought of it kind of as a circle relationship where there's parent, there's child, and there's us, and we all kind of fit in there. So the parent and us as instructors, martial arts school owners, instructors have to kind of come alongside, agree to agree, and sometimes even agree to disagree on some small things so we can bring a unified face to the child. So back to these expectations, let's talk about that a little bit from the parent perspective, but also back from how can an instructor have high expectations as well for their students and create an environment in a school that is that people can want to go to. Does that make sense? Where there is excellence and high expectations. So
I think a huge piece of that is whenever you're asking the question of not were you the best, but was that your best?
Yeah.
And that is just a huge change in their in a mindset, instead of like, okay, so you have that kid that has, a lot of natural ability that just comes in and they're flexible and, they just have that little internal fire and they do just enough to be, quote, number one.
Right.
But they could have gone 10 times faster or 10 times harder. And so just seeing that, was that your best or was that just the best?
The best, yeah.
Yeah.
So what popped in my head when you said that, I can't count how many times I've had this conversation with competitors in the school. Whenever we, back a long time ago, we used to hit a lot of, Taekwondo tournaments and just different things. Obviously we went into breaking, but I would tell kids in our competition classes and competition prep, I don't care what place you get.
Right.
I told them this all the time. My care for you, and truly it was love. Like, I love these guys. Like, is not hinged on your place. And it doesn't really hinge on your effort, but I will tell you, I'm more concerned with, did you walk away feeling like you left something on the table?
Right.
If you got third place and you poured your heart into that, you can look me in the eye, the one that works, the one good eye, and you can say, I gave it my all. Man, I love it. I'm happy with that. And third place is irrelevant because it was about the experience, right? So, and if you got first, the same, but if you got last and you walk out and you go, I skipped some trainings, I didn't give it my all, that's your own fault.
Right.
Suck it up and deal with it, right? So
right.
I love what you said there, because that was, I popped in my head, just countless conversations with, if you get fifth, I love you the same. It doesn't change that, but I do want you to think, did you put your heart into it?
Right.
Did you bring your best?
Right. I think back to just a bazillion times you ask an entire question, who's the champion?
Right.
And the champion is it the person that wins first place? Not always. A lot of times it's that person that has never competed before, that was trying so hard and they trained for it, but golly, they weren't quite there yet. They got third. Well, but that was, they poured everything. They left nothing. I can't even count the times that I've heard the words, did you leave anything on the table? Was there something in your preparation, in your performance that you could have done better? And then, taking that and learning from it. So, yeah. Well,
and I have to say, if you count ISK World Championships developed out of our school, we're in the 60s now. And there's a reason for that. Because the emphasis was never, the expectations were consistent, but the emphasis wasn't put on the placing. The emphasis was just put on the heart and the work. Right. What are you putting into it, and encouraging, I think, the right things. You know what I mean? But so true. Who is the champion? And somebody listening might be like, what do you mean the champion? The champion is the winner. Not particularly. We think of the champion, and yeah, you can classify first place as champion, right? But a champion, man, is somebody, like Glyn Ann said, first competition, maybe the week before the competition, their favorite puppy dog got ran over. It's horrible to think about, but and they went anyway, and they got it done, or they came out of a hard situation. So the champion in my mind was always the one who didn't leave anything on the table. They just brought their heart and brought their best. And not to mention, what did it take if it was their first competition just to sign up for it? That took courage, right? That took heart. So that's good.
Absolutely. So the next thing is really just whenever you're looking at high expectations, a lot of times at the school we'll ask, is there anything medical that we need to know about? Is there any kind of injury that we need to know about? And, of course we want to keep people safe. Absolutely. But I think sometimes as parents and even instructors, we can absolutely lean into that. Oh gosh, they have, X, whatever that is. They have this mental challenge. They have this learning disability. They have this physical limitation, and we can not intentionally, I don't think. I think it's out of a desire to be compassionate. I do think that I don't think that it's like but I do think that stepping into those and just leaning into that is doing nothing to build them.
I'm going to hit this one between the eyes. Your baby was born with a major problem, or your baby's 3 years old and loses an eye.
That's what I was sitting here thinking.
Or your baby's 9 years old and runs a drill through his hand and is told he's going to lose his thumb, or maybe some things I went through. So I'm not saying this from a lack of experience, but that little baby becomes your miracle child. That's the words that always pop in my head. Oh, they're my miracle baby. They're my miracle baby.
Every baby is a miracle.
Every baby born is a miracle. It is what it is.
Right.
And I get that everyone is individual and special in their own way. True. But I think the problem with that is they become exceptionally coddled. And when you do that, you're destroying them. You're just destroying them. And so my parents, they made mistakes and they did good things. And one good thing they did is they stuck a foot in my butt and they said, if you want it, work for it. And there's nothing you can't do. I vividly remember, I talked about this the other day, and I don't know if I've talked to you about this in a while, and I don't know if you know this, but you may. I remember when I turned, I think it was 5, you could play t-ball. My parents were excited to take me, and I could not wait because I was a little bit of a country kid. I lived out a little ways, so I didn't know any of the other kids yet too much, other than the few times we went to church and knew a couple of kids. But my mom took me to the little tryouts, the first little practice tryouts, and I remember them telling me, hey, you wait here at the car. We're going to go over and talk to the coach. I don't remember if it was my mom and my dad. I think it was both of them, but they go over and they chat with the coach, and they come back and they go, okay, it's time to go home. And I'm like, so what happened, right? Because all the other kids are out there doing their thing. And they told me on the way home, they said, baby, you have a prosthetic eye and they won't let you play. They're afraid to let you play. They're afraid you'll get hurt, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to do something. We'll do other things. It's going to be good. Yeah. So that's why at 4 years old, I negotiated an hourly wage with my dad. I was hunting, shooting guns, driving trucks, tractors all my life because my parents were like, if other people don't believe in you, we do.
Right.
And so I hate to say it, and this is probably going to get under a lot of skin, but that baby's not a miracle baby. They are. Every baby is, but not extra special. Yes, they need love. Yes, they need compassion. They need all those things to get through that, but they need expectations, right?
Right.
And they need to be held to a high standard. So,
well, and I think a thing about expectations is whenever I continually just lower and go, okay, well, that was good enough. That was good enough. What am I, like, I don't want to say subliminally, subconsciously, but what am I, I'm saying, yeah, you weren't quite good enough for that, but it's okay. And how is that building self-esteem and self-worth and that confidence? Really, I don't like even to say self, whatever, but that confidence of, okay, I did that. that. And those little reminders of, I faced this. It was really hard, and I did it.
yeah, you're saying something I want people to pick up on. Instructors, parents, I did it. Now, she said the confidence comes out of this struggle, and I accomplished that. I did it, not mommy doing it for him. That's my point. That's right. Not daddy doing it for him, not mommy doing it for him. The order of learning, You're unconsciously incompetent. You become consciously incompetent. Then you're consciously competent. And then you become unconsciously competent. So there's a flow there. And in that flow, we do have to do it for them at first.
Right.
So they can become consciously competent. And then we back away and let them go. And then when the challenge comes, we back away.
Yeah, but you have to realize whenever they're 11 and you're continually coming in every day giving the reasons that things are not going to be good today because you're setting that, hey, they haven't done, they had a hard night last night. They didn't sleep well. Well, you know what? Someday they're going to have a job and they're going to have a baby.
What?
And they didn't sleep at all last night and they still got to go. So, you have to have that future in your head of what's coming. So the next thing I want to talk about is because we can stay on that.
We so can beat this drum for a while. I know.
Yeah, for sure. The next thing I want to talk about is that comparative justification. Mm-hmm. At least they're not. And man, that you just went from having a high expectation to dropping it to the bottom of the barrel, and whatever it is. Well, at least they're not smoking in the bathroom or whatever. And it went from whatever expectation you had for them, and man, that is just such. You let them do it, and then we can also do it too. And because then they can say, well, Mom, at least I'm not. And it's like, well, that is true. At least you're not. However,
I think this is I'm going to take a little different stance in that this is a double-edged blade because perspective is everything.
That is true.
What I see is my reality. What I perceive, this is huge. What I perceive is my reality. So I 100% agree that we can slide expectations and lower standards easily by justification and going, well, at least, they got to, 70%. Well, at least they weren't 30. You know what I mean? Like, at least they weren't 30. And that does, you're spot on, that lowers. But from the perspective of learning and understanding progress, sometimes I think we do need to look back and go, hey, I was at a 30 and today I am at a 70.
Right.
But I don't take my eyes off of 100.
Absolutely. And I think that perspective is absolutely huge, but I think that the thing, well, at least I'm not skipping school. Well, yes, no, that is true. Two things can be true. I'm happy you're not skipping school. However, showing up and doing nothing is still not okay.
That is so good. Oh, that is so good, man.
Yeah.
I love that. So just be careful, even as a martial arts instructor, that you're not going, well, at least you're not. Yeah. And letting that lower your standard for them or lower their own standard. And when I say standard, expectation standard, right. And I think that's why as the adults in the room, that's why your 9-year-old doesn't make their own life decisions particularly yet. We let them try to make it, and then we encourage them the right direction and guide them because we're the ones with the experience that have to keep them on that expectation, right?
Yeah, and expectations are edifying. Whenever you have an expectation, you're saying you can do this, but I'm gonna help you get there.
Right.
You're encouraged. It's encouraging. It's guiding them towards success, and then that success breeds success. You have that whatever you again. This pulls us really into that last piece, but you're celebrating that step on the journey, not just the award or the right. reward or whatever that is.
Well, real quick, one thing that was kind of ringing in my head that I do want to say, and it's I know I picked this up as a quote from someone. I don't remember if it was Vince Lombardi, some high level teacher coach at some point said, "Good is the enemy of great."
That's right.
And I like to say sometimes good enough is the enemy of greatness, right? Because we get to a point, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. At least you're not this. That's good enough. No, it's not. In the Bible, we are called to be excellent. We are called to greatness.
Work as if it's unto the Lord.
Work as if it's unto the Lord. I love that.
Because it is.
It's something that Glyn Ann says a lot, and it's a great grounder. Like, Did I really work as if I was doing that for God? If I am, I need to pick up my pace a little bit here,
Yeah,
right?
just work with excellence. Do everything that you do with excellence.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Awesome. Okay, so really the last thing that we wanted to talk about is, celebrating victories is absolutely great. You go to a tournament, you win first place, man, let's go have a burger. That's awesome. But the other thing,
some people are listening like, that's how you celebrate with a burger. For us, it is.
Yeah.
Like, we're pretty simple.
Woohoo!
Like, let's get a cheeseburger with fries tonight. Not just the meat and bread. We're gonna put all the condiments on.
oh yeah, you get pickles and everything.
Right. Oh,
but,
goodness.
but yeah, it's fine to celebrate things like that, but, and I think it's also really easy to step back and look at things that you've celebrated with your kids and you're like, golly, did I really do that? It was like, I'm going to give you $10 for every A. And so then it's only about the A. And
Right.
and instead of going, okay, you were making a C in this and it's because you weren't doing X, Y, Z. And now you've brought it up to a high B. Okay, that's improvement. Let's keep going and celebrate that improvement. Celebrate the hard work. I've watched you practice on, your form every night all by yourself. That's huge. Celebrate the
effort,
initiative.
yes.
Oh man, celebrate those things, not just because here's where it can go, like it can totally go wrong, is you're celebrating just the victory, just the specifically like in school,
Kind of celebrating
just
the destination. in a
Yeah,
way.
you're celebrating that end point, and it goes right back to that. Was that the best or your best?
Yep.
Like,
Yes,
are
yes.
you? And then you can also be building in them. I think back to how many times I went in to take a test personally,
Right.
and I crammed for 2 hours. I got up early and I would cram for 2 hours before the test. I could spit that stuff out and I remember none of it.
Guilty.
Oh, I know.
I've done the same.
Yeah. And so it's just, you get in that mindset of it. It's just about this little dot.
Yes.
It's not about the growth, and just teaching that.
Yes. So real quick, if you're listening, you're paying attention to the podcast here as a parent to really all of this, parent, instructor, a couple of books that were really impactful that really, I think, articulate these concepts well. There's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Yeah.
That really leans into kind of the psychology of this a little bit, not super deep, but enough that it's like, the layman can get it and understand it and feel good about it. And Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Yeah.
Some really powerful parable stories where she went into, some high level military training schools and stuff. And they break this down, this idea of celebrating initiative, hard work, etc., and not the destination. But it's probably a good subject for another podcast. But those books are really powerful. Mindset and Grit, Angela Duckworth and Carol Dweck. But they articulate these concepts well. High expectations, get them, keep them, hold your people to them, your kids, your students. And I think I'll say one more thing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but don't let the squeaky wheel few, right, that are out there chirping and screaming for stupid things drag you down, weaken your resolve. Stop. Stand your ground. Stand your ground.
That
Be
pulls
strong.
straight into our theme that we have rolling for
Yes, sir.
next year,
Yes,
which
ma'am.
is,
I just called you a sir.
That's all good. I know what you mean. Whatever. Is stand firm.
Stand firm.
Stand firm. And man, if we can stand firm, and it's not just about being belligerent, being difficult, being hard-headed, it's about standing firm in the things that matter, and and the truth.
I love it. I love
the
it. So-
capital T truth.
Capital T truth, right, right from Jesus. So don't forget expectations. That was kind of the point of the talk, okay? Keep those expectations high and don't give in. Stand firm, hold them there, keep them there, and understand that some of the best learning that we do is when the expectation is high and we fail to reach it. And
Absolutely.
it's painful. Yeah, that's where the learning happens, right?
I think about, other school owners will have experienced this as well. Whenever you have that kid, and it's the most meaningful ones are, of course, whenever they're your kid. But whenever you watch them, absolutely, they fail. And it's, man, you just want to, and you should wrap your arms around them. And it just,
heart-wrenching.
It just, oh man, it crushes you and you're so, like, I hate this for you. But when you encourage them to go back and you see them succeed, and then letting them have that experience is just utterly priceless.
Fast example of that. So a year ago, our son,
I was having those exact
jiu-jitsu tournament, squared up with a kid that headbutted him 2 or 3 times, pretty intentionally, just being a little turd, right? And ended up, you could see the wind kind of leave his sails a little bit as those things happened to him. As a dad, I wanted him to pull that kid's head off, right? Like, just go get him. But I also was having to bite back anger, the emotions of stepping in and going, okay, look, ref, get your head out of your hiney and pay attention to what's going on. There was just so many things, but I was also sitting back and going, this is so good for him to experience. And I hated it the whole time he experienced it. I could not stand it. But the cool part was, I really, that was like a 6 month ago-ish. 6 months later, we go, and he methodically just destroys his opponents again. And
barely breaks a sweat kind of thing.
And it was just like so good to see. And he did it with amazing sportsmanship and respect and didn't have to play dirty to make that happen. And that was such a powerful thing. But the point was, as a parent, I was boiling to no end on the inside about that, but I had to keep my poker face on for him and for the other people in the venue. That would not be good for me to melt down just because a kid was playing dirty, and my son was kind of blown away by, this is not cool. This is not cool. And again, it kind of took the wind out of his sails for a little bit there. And so, but to watch him come back from that, 6 months later and just absolutely dominate was so powerful. And that was the point. Hopefully it was the right one.
Yeah. And I think to close out that on expectations is that encouragement to continue even whenever the outcome is not, they don't win. And you're kind of going, well, let's see, what are we going to find that was good out of this? Well, the good out of this is actually that you failed.
Well, maybe my expectation was for him to crush that kid.
Right.
He did not do it. And so I had to battle emotions to not grab him by his ears and go, why did you not? You knew what to do and you didn't do it. And I didn't let that out.
Yeah.
I kept it inside, loved on him, said, hey man, it's okay. These things happen. We're going to go back to the mat and get busy. And we did. And it paid dividends the next round. So thank you all so much for listening in. Comment, like it, share it, love it, all those kinds of things. Send us a message. Let us know what you'd like to hear. Babe, thank you for being on and bringing all the wisdom today. Keep those expectations high. Stay consistent. Don't be outworked. All those things. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning into the Team Chip Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget, subscribe, share, and or leave a review because we need you. We appreciate you so much. And without you, we can't make this happen. Remember, consistency is the key to success. So go out there and never be outworked.